Colonel Kurt Schlichter.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. You can just call me Colonel. Thank you, veterans. Thank you, Mayor Edgar. Mayor Pro Tem Edgar and Mayor Pro Tem Seymour. Mayor Mills, Mr. Peck, in that wonderful, wonderful recitation of the Gettysburg Address. One more hand. Love to thank Forrest Lawn and Ms. Mills. This is wonderful. And let's not forget the Western High School Band. But most of all, I want to thank the veterans and the families. I want to thank all of you. It's an honor being here. I want to talk to you today about the heroes that are all around us. You know, in an age when the idea of heroism is cheapened to mean somebody who can sink a basket or maybe win on American Idol, the heroes all around us, they serve as a reminder of what is truly best about Americans. Now, it's easy to forget that throughout history, what we have as Americans, freedom, justice, democracy, that's not the rule, that's the exception. And it didn't just happen. It didn't come about, and it's not preserved, except by the sacrifice of heroes. While we're here to honor those who went before, we must also remember those who serve today. As hard as it is to believe on a beautiful day like today, in places like Baghdad, Kosovo, the DMZ in Korea, Kandahar, our forces are facing the enemy as we speak. You know, sometimes I hear critics say that the young people of today's generation, well, they just don't compare. They don't measure up. They're spoiled. They're weak. They have a sense of entitlement. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've commanded those young men and women, and I can report to you that those critics could not be more wrong. Today's generation is every bit the equal of the generations that came before. And today, we're going to honor the sacrifice over the last 10 years of over 6,000 of them. Those of us who still serve, we understand that we walk in a path laid down by heroes. And those heroes are all around us today. Some of them, well, they're out there in the audience. They're you veterans who answered our nation's call and the families that supported you. Other heroes, well, they're going to remain here at rest while we've gone home to our picnics and barbecues. You know, we live in a beautiful, peaceful place, Southern California. It's easy to forget a simple truth, that America has always been at war. The name the enemy uses, that changes. Sometimes they call themselves Nazis. Sometimes they're communists. Sometimes they're socialists. Lately, they've been calling themselves Al-Qaeda. But the enemy is always the same. Our history is a history of a struggle between those who think men were born to be the slaves of tyrants. That's one of them. Those who think that men were born to be slaves of tyrants, and those of us who understand that God endowed every single human being with inalienable rights that no government can ever steal. Our founding fathers understood that truth, and the heroes resting here, they understood that too. John Stuart Mill wrote, "War is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling, which thinks that nothing is worth war, is much worse. The person who has nothing for which he is willing to fight, nothing which is more important than his own personal safety, is a miserable creature and has no chance of being free, unless made so and kept so by the exertions of better men and women than himself." The heroes resting here understood that in the most profound way. They had so much to live for. Maybe that's why they believed they had something worth dying for. Maybe that's why they're heroes. But those heroes that rest here, they're not the only heroes that are around us. They're heroes around us every single day. There's the high school social studies teacher who drove a 7-core tank in Desert Storm. There's the State Farm agent. Well, he went to Baghdad with a Marine Corps reserve. How about that friendly greeter down at the Costco who manned a machine gun as a SEAL down in the Mekong Delta? Maybe a gentle pediatrician who saved hundreds of lives in a combat support hospital outside of Fallujah. Or a kindly grandfather who one evening stood in the door of a C-47 over Normandy, wearing the silver wings of the United States Army Airborne and the patch of the 82nd, as he stepped off into the darkness on June 6, 1944. Veterans, you've given so much, but you're not done. I have a new mission for you. We vets know that the real heroes are the ones that don't tell stories. I know if I went out and asked any of you, "What did you do?" You'll say, "I did my job. I didn't do anything more." We know you don't want to talk about your stories because you believe so many other people did so much more than you. Well, gentlemen, ladies, I'm here to tell you, you no longer have that luxury. If you don't step forward now and tell your stories and share what you know, what you lived through, well, then that heritage will depart when you do. And the only way our nation is going to have a future is if it understands its past. That's why it's up to you. You need to keep these heroes' stories alive. Your stories and the stories of the heroes resting here. Talk to your grandkids. Tell them what you saw. Visit a school. Talk to the classes. Tell them the truth. Tell them the good. Tell them the bad. The time for modesty has passed. Your country needs you again. It needs you to tell your stories. Now, the generations of our country's past, they've stepped forward. Today's generation is stepping forward. We need to ensure that tomorrow's generation steps forward when duty calls. We need to teach them that our country, our citizens, the unique freedom we enjoy, well, they're worth fighting for, and yes, they're worth dying for. Now, there's some people out there, they think they're sophisticated. They scoff at the notion of good and evil. To them, everything's just a shade of gray. There's no real right and there's no real wrong. Well, the men and women we honor today, our veterans, they know better. They know evil exists because they dared stare it in the face, and they know it must be fought. And they know that the terrible price of victory is exceeded only by the price of defeat. Fellow veterans, I'm counting on you to make sure we never let that lesson be forgotten. You have your mission, veterans. You have never let us down in the past. I know you won't let us down now. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to offer a final salute to our fallen. We're going to leave here. We're going to spend the day with our family and friends. Some people question whether having barbecues and picnics on Memorial Day is proper. I don't. The heroes around us, They didn't die so we could mourn. They died to make real the promise of our founding fathers of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So go ahead and have a beer. Maybe two. But just remember what Memorial Day means and pass that on to the Americans of tomorrow. As vets, as heirs to the greatest and military of the greatest and freest nation that the world has ever known, that's our final mission. And to those who gave their lives to defend our nations, God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless the United States of America.